I too am pleased to be able to speak this evening on the Civil Law Missing Persons Bill 2016. I said I'm happy to speak on the important piece of legislation here this evening. At the outset, I just have to get in the result from Westminster, so it's a sad and bleak place at the moment as well. At the outset, I want to commend the work that took place on this bill in the Seanad last year, where the bill originated and was debated. I specifically want to note the work of Senator Conor Burke in this regard. I was shocked to learn from the Seanad debates that the number of missing persons reported in Ireland increased from 5,000 missing persons in 2004 to 9,000 in 2014, in a 10-year period. It is simply unimaginable to think that these families and their loved ones suffer when a person goes missing. As we know, the Law Reform Commission published a report on civil law aspects of the missing persons in 2013. It made a number of recommendations that have found their way into this bill, thankfully. Some of the aspects of the legislation are highly complex and require careful management and scrutiny. As the Law Reform Commission have noted, the need to deal with the return of a missing person also arises because some adults who go missing do so voluntarily. And we will never forget Sinead Slia. We will never forget that. The report noted that they may simply wish to break contact with family or friends, which can sometimes be connected with personal or emotional reasons. In such an instance, the missing person may be unaware that the disappearance has resulted in the appointment of an interim manager or a declaration of presumed death. It could also arise where fraud is involved, as in the case of John Darwin, the Englishman who faked his own death while out canoeing. It's more untrue and Rod Shin. There is also the matter of where an Irish citizen disappears abroad. As far as the Commission is concerned, in Ireland, if a person goes missing abroad in circumstances that indicate that death is virtually certain, a presumption of death order may be obtained in the courts almost immediately. The current law is, however, unclear as to the position where a foreign court issues a declaration of death or presumed death for an Irish citizen who disappears while abroad. The Commission was of the view that, in such a case, those left behind should not be at a disadvantage by virtue of the location of the disappearance. And that's a very, very interesting and very, very fair comment. The Commission therefore concluded that when an Irish citizen disappears while abroad, an application may be made to the Circuit Court for any of the orders already provided for in this report. The Commission also recommends that any such application should be subject to the same criteria as apply where the court grants such orders in respect of a person who has gone missing in Ireland, in the state. The primary purpose of the bill here before us, however, is to deal with the civil law status of missing persons. As the explanatory memorandum makes clear, it puts in place a statutory framework which would provide for the making of a presumption of death order in respect of two categories of missing persons. The first category, where the circumstances of the disappearance indicate that death is virtually certain. And if the second category is where both the circumstances and the length of disappearance indicate that it is highly probable that the missing person has died and will not return, which is where the disappearance occurred in dangerous circumstances or in other circumstances in which loss of life may be presumed. In that regard, I certainly welcome the fact that the bill is intended to clarify the legal position when a person is missing who is entitled to apply to the court for an interim manager to be appointed to manage the missing person's estate, and what procedures must be complied with before the court will issue a presumption of death order. What is vital here is that we get the balance right, and that we do not enact legislation that will allow any unreasonable determinations to be made with respect to what has happened to a missing person. And I suppose that's vital with all legislation, Minister and Lascan Corla, that we try and get a right balance. and oftentimes we don't, and that's why it's important that we have proper, perusal and indeed pre-led scrutiny and debate. And I know that they had the debate in the Senate here and pointed up a lot of issues, a very good debate, and I thank them for that. But it's vital in this area especially, because it's such a huge trauma to have visited on a family, a loved one, or indeed where a person might be single, might have any siblings or parents might be dead, friends, a neighbourhood and a community, the whole community, and the effort they put into, and many times out voluntary groups, searching, assisting in Gardaí Corner, and a huge Red Cross and indeed civil defence and numerous, and the Air Search and Rescue and everything else. But look, it's vital that we explore all these issues and that we try and have, an exhaustive search, but it's also vital that we have proper legal framework thereafter, where it happens in a different jurisdiction to our own, and we must, be sure that we have robust legislation here that can maybe overrule that, or maybe have a second look at that, and that we have, especially for the sake of families and loved ones, that they are satisfied that all eventualities are covered and catered for in this legislation. And certainly I look forward to seeing this legislation progress through the House. And Minister, any assistance I can be, and us in the rural independence can be, because it's a lonely, lonely place to have a friend or colleague or even a parishioner, or as you know, Minister, yourself from rural Ireland or Upper Ireland. There's a community of people that will always be affected and impacted, and it's important that they get the solace and satisfaction that, first of all, a fully exhaustive search is carried out, and secondly, that there is robust legislation that can and will, determine that all the proper processes and steps are gone through, rather than just having something that's the question marks over and asked. And we have many missing persons, and mentioned Jojo Dollar and many others, the trauma those families go through. So I want to support this legislation.